Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the September 5th, 2017 meeting of the Stillwater Planning Commission. The first item for business is land use item for discussion and possible action. Trade and Development Final Plat PZ.17.2227, requesting review and approval of final plat of Traden Heights Estates, Section 3, create 82 residential lots on 22.47 acres in RSS zoning district. The property addressed as 4299 West Prescott. Good evening.
Good evening. Patty Evans, Development Services. Okay, the location of this plat is in the Traden area that's been developing for several years. This is Murphy Street that's coming off of 6th Avenue, turns into Aggie. This little bit here is Landry, and then we have Prescott that comes up here. This is the last section of Traden Heights Estates. This area with the lots is Section 1. This blank area here is Section 2. And so the hatched area is the rest of the area, it'd be Section 3. This shows some photos taken at the preliminary plat stage. So we're actually looking, this is looking off to the west. This is Prescott Street right here. This is looking to the south, and this is to the south. This is kind of southwest. So down here where that dirt's at, right in front of those trees, that's where Section 3 is going to be. On the final plat, it contains 81 residential lots and 2 outlots for drainage and detention. There are 4 streets that are going to provide access to Section 3. Landry Lane is being extended, and that was part of Section 2, and it comes down on the north side of Section 3, comes down through Section 2 to the boundary of Section 3, and they are going to extend just a little bit down to this street. The other 2 streets coming off of Landry are Autry Street, I believe is this one, and Martin Street is this one. The next east-west road is going to be Country Club Drive, and the last east-west road is Willow Drive. And Willow and Country Club will be connecting to the west to those subdivisions, so they will have a good pattern of access for emergency vehicles and traffic. The improvement plans have been submitted. They are being reviewed. Those improvement plans will have to be approved prior to this final plat going on to the City Council. Our findings include the proposed final plat is the final portion of the preliminary plat that was approved November 1st, 2016. The proposed use of the property is compatible with the C3 plan of low-density residential. The final plat conforms to the RSS zoning district regulations. The final plat conforms to the approved preliminary plat. And the improvement plans, like I said, are under review and will have to be approved before the final plat moves on to the City Council. Are there any questions?
Does Willow go into Mansfield? Is that where that connects? Will that come around to Mansfield?
Yeah, I think it is Mansfield. I think it changes,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
names right there at the border of the subdivisions.
Thank you very much. We will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward, give your name and address for the record. There being no one, if anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the item, please step forward, give your name and address for the record. I will then close the public hearing and ask for staff's alternatives.
Okay, the alternatives are to accept findings and recommend that the City Council approve the proposed final plat as presented, or find that additional information is needed, and table the request to a certain date.
Discussion?
Well, we've seen this in preliminary plat, and it looks like it's exactly the same. So with that, I would make the motion to accept findings and recommend to the city council that the city council approve the proposed final plat as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll now vote. The motion to approve passes 4 to 0. I mean, there's,
I'm sorry, I had Zelt still on the voting list, so I'll make a note that the no choice is a blank spot for absent.
4-0.
So it's 4-0.
all right. Thank you very much. The next item for business will be Outer Banks LLC map amendment rezoning PZ-17-2230, requesting review and approval of a map amendment to rezone property addressed as 1005 South Duncan Street from RT to RTM.
All right. Okay, the hatched area is 1005 South Duncan. And the current zoning is RT, which is two-family or duplex. The surrounding zoning districts are RT and P across to the west. The surrounding uses are single-family residential, even though this is zone two-family. It's single-family residential. And the public area to the west is the library and the multi-arts. These are a couple of photos of the street view. It currently has two structures on it. The main structure is the single-family residential unit. This structure back here is an old garage with an apartment above it. The garage and apartment is in disrepair, and nobody has used that apartment for residential use for some time. The RT zoning district allows 2 attached single-family residential units, and the applicant plans to demolish the existing 2 structures, the non-conforming structures, and build 2 detached dwelling units. The requested RTM district allows detached single-family structures with a specific use permit. This is a small property, only 6,004 square feet, and it's in a block that is all zoned RT. So the rezoning of the property would be considered spot zoning due to the adjacent properties having the RT zoning district designation. The zoning comparison chart, the bulk standards pretty much match. About the only thing that doesn't is the minimum lot size and the width and the depth. The RT lot size is 7,500 square feet, so even now it doesn't meet the required square feet for a duplex, but it's grandfathered in. The RTM requires 20,000 square feet. The findings include that it is not compliant with the C3 plan of commercial. The RT district allows 2 attached dwelling units on a lot. The RT zoning district does not allow 2 detached dwelling units on a single lot. The RTM allows detached single-family dwelling units with an SUP. The rezoning is considered spot zoning. The applicant does want to improve the property, but remodeling of the existing structures without demolishing them would allow the continuation of the non-conforming uses and structures. Are there any questions?
no questions. Thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing then. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward, give your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Kelly Harris with Keystone Engineering, located at 923 South Lowry, here representing the owner tonight, and he is here and probably will speak later, so he's available for questions also. But we are requesting this RTM zoning due to just being able to continue to use the property in the way it has been used in the past. Those buildings are in very bad disrepair, and they need to be reconstructed. And in order to do that and still maintain that use, that's why we're asking for the RTM zoning classification. As I said, the owner would like to continue to use that property. There are multiple properties within this block already doing this, using the multiple structures on their properties as separate dwelling units, even though they're not zoned this way. So this zoning classification would allow us to do this, and then due to the density requirements or restrictions, I would say, in this requested RTM zone, and our lot size, we would be limited to only 2 units. So that's a good way to keep a hold of, more than multiple units being allowed, since these are still smaller lots. Staff has said that this would be classified as spot zoning, and on a map, it may look that way. However, since some of the surrounding owners are already using their property in this use, this is already in this block and established, so we would just like to continue with that use. You have any questions for me?
Is the plan, Kelly, to still do like a living quarters over the garage?
That's correct.
And then how many bedroom house, do you know?
I am not for sure.
Okay.
But we'd be reconstructing the 2 dwelling units, and that's where the kicker is, since they're detached currently, and we want to construct them back on the same footprint, so they would be detached in the future. That's what's not allowed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else wish to speak in favor of the item? Please step forward and give your name and address for the record.
Cori Williams, 304 South King Street. I'm the principal of Outer Banks LLC, and we are at heart preservationists. In 15 years of doing this, it's the first time I'm asking to knock something down. And really, we bought this. It was a dilapidated property that had been abandoned. We bought it at sheriff's sale. And when I walked through it the first time, I thought, well, I bought a really nice piece of dirt. Existing on the structure, on the property right now, is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, 2-car detached garage with a mother-in-law suite above it. And we want to build back a 3-bedroom, 3-bath house because current norms have more bathrooms, or enough bathrooms to match the bedrooms, along with the 2-car detached garage with a mother-in-law suite above it. We just recently renovated at 11th and Duncan, a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with a mother-in-law suite above the garage, and also did one at the alleyway there, 211 West 11th. And what we've been doing is buying property in that area and renovating it in an attempt to restore everything from the library to Main Street. And when we went to start getting our plans together for this, we found out that I could build a duplex without any real permission at all, but to preserve the integrity of the neighborhood and to build back what we already have, we need to be before you and go in front of the city council. And so that's why we're here today. I don't want to build a duplex because I really think it does challenge the integrity of the neighborhood, and we're trying to restore it to a single-family, urban living infill use. And so that's why the other way around it would be, and I got this from city planning, would be to build the 2 separate structures and then connect them by a walkway and put a roof above it. But we're not really trying to circumvent the spirit of the code. We're just asking that we can continue the integrity of the neighborhood and build back a situation where we can restore it to a single family with a mother-in-law suite above the garage. Can I answer any questions for you? And we've done it. I mean, that's the one thing I want to reiterate. We've done it once, so this isn't a situation where we're going to get permission and then come in and build as many units as we can. We've done it. It's been restored to a single family with a mother-in-law suite above it, and we've got 4 other projects in this same block and a half area.
Are there any existing duplexes in that neighborhood?
Not to my knowledge, no. Now, there is an investment property to the north of us that is a single-family residential house that has been, I think it's rented out to about 5 people, but as far as a duplex situation, no. And I really actually just don't think, I don't know how it ended up with that zoning. I think it came in with the bid at one point in time. I really don't think it's great for the neighborhood. We're trying to do. Honestly, that house was built in 1935, and we're trying to do something that looks very much like it. We want to do a craftsman period relevant. I'd let the commissioners know that we're also in front of the Board of Adjustment for the variances, because setbacks were adopted at one point in time that don't comply with the current uses in the neighborhood. So we're also trying to adjust everything on that lot. 15 years of doing this, I've never had to knock a house down, but I can assure you, if you walk through it, you would agree with me. It needs to be knocked down. And actually, there's a neighbor here, the neighbor to the south. In that block, there's actually quite a bit of owner-occupy still. A recent transition of property at 11th and Duncan. Those owners are occupying it. It's not a rental. And then the property directly to the south of us, that person is here to speak this evening. I think their preference would be that it not be a duplex either. So, anyway, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Please go ahead.
My name is Bruce Parnell. I live at 1011 South Duncan, and that's the house immediately to the south of the proposal. And I am here to support the plan that is put before you today. I'll give two reasons. One is that if you go back to the picture that you saw, that must be about 5 years old. One of the trees that is pictured there has grown up and is right next to the house. It has destroyed the foundation of the house. It's one reason why it can't really be rebuilt on the existing foundation, because it's been destroyed because of the neglect. And so it has been abandoned and has become a den for stray cats and for party goers. Sometimes in the neighborhood like to go through it as kind of a haunted house, I think. So if you do anything, please grant Cori the license to go ahead and do something with it, just so that there can be a family living in there again. Secondly, I would just confirm that if you look at the track record, look at the homes that Cori and his group have refurbished, they are pleasant, beautiful homes, taking homes that have fallen into disrepair and reconditioning them, renovating them. And I look forward to what he has planned next door to us. And I would speak against a duplex, and be very glad to have a craftsman type house next door to us. Any questions?
Anyone else wish to speak in favor? Seeing none. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the item, please step forward. Right. I'll thereby close the public hearing and ask for staff's alternatives.
The alternatives are to accept the findings and recommend that the City Council approve the request as presented, find that the request is not an appropriate use for the property based upon the impacts to the surrounding vicinity, and do not recommend that the City Council approve the request, or find that additional information or discussion is needed prior to making a recommendation, and table the request to a certain date. Any questions?
Do you know why that area was zoned RT? I know when I drove around, I didn't see anything that looked like a duplex there.
It probably came about when, in a combination with the bid area and our 2008 land development code that came out, we had to go through, we eliminated a lot of zoning districts, so we had to go through and try to put the best zoning district that would fit on those properties. That's the only thing I can think of.
I think the best thing for this neighborhood is to approve what has been proposed.
Well, my thoughts, Mike, are, for one thing, I think it's got the wrong zoning overlay to start with. I'm not a proponent of spot zoning, but in this case, if he's going back with basically the same thing that's there, I think it does keep the neighborhood, I guess, like all the other surrounding properties around it, kind of maintains that level.
Yes.
I don't see it going to, like the comp plan saying, being commercial. I know a lot of the properties have been renovated recently. The ideal that it could remain the same if he was just remodeling, but, he's wanting to go ahead and improve the property. Obviously, he can't remodel, or he probably would. If it's in such disrepair that he can't, then, and then building, if he was to build a walkway to connect the two, which just seems silly to me to have to do. So, again, I'm with you. I think it would be a good use of a rezone, even though it might be looked at as spot zoning.
You want to make a motion? I move we accept findings and recommend the city council approve the proposed map amendment as presented.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll now vote on the motion to approve staff recommendations. Motion passes 4-0. On to the next item, land use, Empower Inc. map amendment rezoning PZ-17-2231, requesting review and approval of a map amendment to rezone property addressed as 316 South Stallard Street from public P to O office.
All right, this map amendment is for the former Highland Park Elementary School. The current zoning is public. The surrounding zoning is RSS, small lot, single family. The surrounding uses are residential, and then directly to the south of the property right here is a church. Public zoning district identifies properties owned by the city and any other municipal, county, state, or federal government agency. Therefore, to utilize this property for any other use, it has to be rezoned. I believe it's been difficult. I've talked to many people, so it's been difficult to find the right buyer and the right uses for a rezoning request that would minimally impact the neighborhood. The planned uses for this property are for adult day services, vocational services to the disabled, a church, and possibly other nonprofit organizations. And all these uses are allowed by right in the office zoning district. The office zoning district is intended to transition between the higher density commercial uses and the low density residential uses. The findings are, historically, this is property was a neighborhood elementary school. The property has been underutilized since the school relocated out east of town, on the east side of town. The proposed zoning is not compatible with the C3 plan of public. The office zoning district uses provide transition between commercial uses and residential uses. The proposed uses are allowed by right in the office zoning district, and the area is developed in single-family residential uses with a church immediately to the south. Are there any questions?
Does the C3 plan have it zoned as public just because when the C3 plan was made, it was still a school?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. Does the C3 plan have it zoned as public because it was still a school when?
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Thank you very much. I'll now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward, giving your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the item, please step forward, give your name and address for the record.
Sherry James, 309 Doty, just west of the property. I'm not sure if I'm against it or for it, just stating my concern. The school property is about 5 feet above my backyard, and there is significant runoff into my yard and has washed out my driveway. And I just wanted to state my concern. Something needs to be done, hopefully. Either way, there's an issue. It's been brought up in the past by past property owners, and nothing seems to be done. I think it's been this way for perhaps decades, so just, I don't know if they put in a parking lot, where is the flow going to go? You know, what are they going to do? So that's just my concern.
Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the item, please step forward. There being none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for staff's alternatives.
Okay, the alternatives are to accept the findings and recommend to the City Council to approve the request as presented, find that the request is not an appropriate use for the property, and recommend that the City Council deny the request, or find that additional information is needed prior to making a recommendation and table the request to a certain date.
I'd say the proposed use seems pretty compatible with the existing neighborhood.
I'd like to point out that our one public comment, us changing the zoning, whether we do or not, is not going to affect that either in a positive or negative way. If they redevelop, if they come in and add more parking, they'll have to come under the City of Stillwater ordinances and do things so the impact will not increase any flooding in that area. But this, whether we vote for or against this, it won't change that drainage problem. So with that, I'll move to accept findings and recommend the City Council approve the proposed map amendment as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve staff recommendations. We'll now vote. The motion prevails 4-0. The next item for business is land use for discussion of possible action of Donald K. Warner and Susan Glasgow, successor trustee of the Jean Campbell Trust, and Sharon Scott, attorney, map amendment rezoning PZ-17-2233, requesting review and approval of a map amendment to rezone property addressed as 1123 and 1124 South Ridge Street from RSS, residential single family, to O, office.
All right, these are 2 lots at the intersection of 12th Avenue and Ridge Road, or Ridge Drive, rather. These 2 lots are miscellaneous tracts. They have not been platted, so they are not a part of this subdivision here. They were a minor subdivision, I believe, when they divided the offices off from this parcel, these 2 parcels. 12th Avenue is classified as a minor arterial, and Ridge Road is a local street. The properties are zoned RSS, and there's RSS to the north and to the south, RT, or duplex, to the east, and office to the west. The uses in this area include a church, a nursing home, professional offices and service organizations, the duplex, and single-family residential to the north. There is also a large parcel south of 12th and just to the east of this public area here that is also zoned office. It's vacant land right now, several acres, and it is also zoned office. The area is transitioning to a low-impact commercial uses, and with the classification of 12th Avenue as an arterial, that encourages commercial uses. The office zoning district is considered a transitional district between the residential districts and the more intense commercial districts. The comp plan calls for the property, excuse me, to the west as commercial, and the one on the east as low-density residential. These are the structures that are located on the two lots. This is 1123 South Ridge, and this is the one on the east. I believe this house is for sale or will be for sale shortly. The children have to do something with the property. Thus, they were asking that it be rezoned to open up for more uses. The one at 1124 South Ridge is owner-occupied, and the residential uses may continue under the office district. In the zoning comparison chart, there are quite a few differences in the bulk requirements, lot size, and so forth. The findings include the properties are located on a minor arterial street. Commercial uses are indicated for the west parcel and low-density residential for the east parcel in the C3 plan. The properties are located in an area seeing transition to low-impact commercial uses. The properties may continue the residential use in the office zoning district. And the immediate area has a mixture of church, professional office, healthcare, service uses, and low-density residential uses. Are there any questions?
Is there a particular reason why both of them are included under one application?
The owners just got together and decided they wanted to do this thing, so because they're doing it at the same time, we're doing it in one application.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. I'll now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward, give your name and address for the record.
My name is Sharon Scott, and my address is 406 South Duncan. And I'm here as the attorney and representative for both of the applicants. And the area has transitioned, that both houses were built in approximately about 1984. And at that time, I believe that office complex was already there. And across the street, as mentioned, there is the nursing home. And then further to the east on the south side of the road is the church, which has come about since the owners purchased their homes. Then on the 123 South Ridge, there is a duplex, as mentioned, that is straight to the east. And then beyond that is a 1224 Club, which is actually a service organization that's been there long before anything else and is quite active. My client, which is both parties, but particularly Jeannie Campbell, is probably my longtime dearest friend in the whole world, and if I could bring her back and put her in that home and her life continue there, I would certainly do that. But she is deceased, and her family now is going to sell the property as no one of them live here in Stillwater. And we think it's highly improbable that any family will choose to buy the house because of the busy street there and the road noise, and that a commercial office would be a good buffer for the rest of the neighborhood. That would be assuring the neighbors for almost certain no barking dogs and no wild parties. Whereas if the house remains and isn't sold either for commercial purposes or residential purposes, the family will be forced to turn it into a rental property. Now, as for the Warners who live to the west across the street, they intend to stay in their home. They have no plans to sell, but they had the same answer to me. They would rather that the 1123 South Ridge become a commercial office because they don't want to have it as a rental unit, potentially with college students and too many cars and barking dogs. So they came along this with the same intent. So that is our purpose. I'm happy to take any of your questions.
No question.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward and give your name and address for the record.
Good evening, I'm David Glasgow, 1502 West Cherokee, Enid, Oklahoma, and I am the husband of Susan Glasgow, who's successor trustee for Jeannie Campbell. And everything that Sharon has stated is exactly what we feel. I remember a few years back, Bruce and Jeannie were both talking to me about how the commercial started to go all the way around them, and they would like to get that, eventually have that zone commercial because they feared they would never be able to sell this house. And it is our intent to put it on the market, and if we can't sell it, then we're going to have to do something as drastic as rent it, and I'm not going to discriminate against who I'm going to rent it to. So with the rest of the neighborhood and everything, with what Sharon has said, we think this is a really good option to get a business or something in there off of that busy street. Any questions?
No question.
No
Thank you.
questions. Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward and give your name and address for the record.
I'm Belinda Bruner. I live at 1110 South Ridge Drive. There's no Ridge Road. It's a myth. So I've been trying to speak at this meeting for about 7 weeks. And in regard to these rezoning requests, the previous one was Beverly, Haston, and the nursing home, West Haven. I almost decided I was for it initially, the rezoning requests. I almost decided I was against it because of lack of accurate information and because of the inability of government officials to answer my questions or be forthcoming. So, can I give some background?
This is for, right now I'm just taking people
okay,
in favor
so
of
I'll have to speak up both times then, because I'm for it, but I had a lot of questions in the process of trying to figure out whether I was for it or against it. And maybe that has to be brought up at a separate meeting.
There'll be no separate meeting. My suggestion is let her speak, and then as
we can do to answer
as the commission.
Okay, so several months ago, I asked a city council member if there were any plans for Stillwater that would affect my neighborhood, because we were getting ready to do remodeling, major remodeling. We were told to contact the planning commission. I wrote to someone on the planning commission, and I didn't get a response. So I went back to the city council member, and between all of this, no one ever told me about Comprehensive Plan 2030, which after about 7 hours of research, I found on my own this afternoon. That would have helped me a lot.
Ma'am?
Yes.
I don't want to cut you off and interrupt you. The only thing before the planning commission tonight is this particular property. They can't answer questions on the comprehensive plan. They can't answer questions on the future of the neighborhood. All they can do is address.
Okay, I'm just explaining.
If you're speaking in favor of the item, please stick to the item.
Okay, because Mike said to let me explain, so that's
Within
why
limits.
I was explaining.
You have to
Okay,
comply with the open meeting.
all right. So the first time I tried to come to this meeting, I called to ask questions. I was told that the meeting was at 6, for one thing. But I am for rezoning these houses to office because I see that apparently the only alternative is going to be to turn them into rent houses. We have a nice balance right now between rental houses and owned residences in that neighborhood. And we've gotten along really well with the renters in the neighborhood, but if it becomes, the balance switches to be more renting than owners, it's going to get a lot more difficult to maintain the good nature of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the item? There being none, I'll ask anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the item, please step forward, give your name and address for the record.
My name is Elaine Court. I live at 2208 West 11th, which is on the north side of 11th and Ridge. My concern is the rezoning affecting 12th. 12th is being called a minor arterial. It is actually part of the loop that was designated Federal Aid Secondary Route 6018, which originally was McGeorge Avenue, which is now Hall of Fame, Perkins Road, 12th, and Western. That secondary route was supposed to go around Stillwater. And by zoning commercial and having commercial properties built on either side of 12th, we're again congesting another arterial. And we're creating a problem that we'll have to fix 10 years down the road. We'll need, right now, I mean, the last few days in the news press, what do we need? We need more roads because of all the cars and congestion. Well, every time we put commercial properties on these major arterials, we're going to create congestion. The neighborhood's already turning to a rental neighborhood. You know, that's a moot point. And basically, those are my, reasons I'm objecting to this plan.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please step forward, state your name and address.
I'm Alan Brunken, live at 2820 West 15th in Stillwater.
Just bring it a little closer for you.
Yes, my name's Alan Brunken, live at 2820 West 15th in Stillwater. I've been working with the homeowner group that is affected by a rezoning further east on 12th Street. And what we have found is that the north side of 12th Street, if you drive along there, and I imagine most of you have, it's a very strong, moderate income residential neighborhood. And one of the reasons we have zoning is so that there can be orderly development. And like this lady said, people can make investments knowing that things are going to stay, that there's a likelihood that the use will stay. What we have found is, like this piece of property, what's going to happen, I fear, is that this will become office zoning, and it will slowly creep east, and it will affect the integrity of that moderate income housing area that is extremely important for the city of Stillwater. It's within walking distance of the hospital and of our campus. And while this may seem like, oh, it's only two pieces of property, it's the beginning. And I would just urge you not to think of it as if there's a nursing home nearby and a church nearby and a dental clinic and medical facilities on the other side. Think of what's actually there when you drive down 12th Street. There's a very strong edge to a residential district. And if we change the zoning to office, It's going to be a cancerous beginning that goes all the way down 12th Street. Thank you.
Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the item, please step forward and give your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name's Shirley Weeks. I live at 71 University Circle. I'm beginning to think residential housing should be placed on the endangered species list. It seems like so often what we come here to do is to change to business. I would like to ask a few questions. How does this change help stabilize the neighborhood? Will the change encourage quality of life in the neighborhood? Is there limited office space in Stillwater? We need residential housing, and we need to protect and enhance residential housing. I think it's in the best interest of this neighborhood for it to remain residential zoned. Thank you very much. I would encourage you to ask those first two questions every time something comes before you to change from residential to office or to a lower zoning. Does it stabilize the neighborhood? Will it encourage the quality of life of Stillwater? The city of Stillwater has a goal to enhance neighborhoods and to build stronger neighborhoods. They need the help of this planning commission, the development service department, and the city council. So I would urge you to leave this residential. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to the item, please step forward. Give your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Amanda Schulz, and I live at 1111 South Ridge. So I'm just directly north of the 1123. And I just want to, I don't think I'm for it. I'm just concerned having an office right next to me and having in the streets pretty narrow and just having the congestion of more cars. You know, I would want to know what the parking would be like and how they would kind of get more information. So I just kind of wanted to go on record that I have some concerns about it.
Thank you very much.
Could I state concerns for the record?
We're taking opposition, so.
Yes. Well, my neighbors and I have been discussing this of the homes needing to be transitioned to office. And we had a list of 6 concerns, but it goes back to the master plan, the comprehensive plan, I'm sorry. So I don't know who to address about that.
I would just state your concern that you might have, just state them as go forth, and we'll just continue from there. I mean, just state them, and we'll have them in the record as they are.
Okay, so our neighbors were concerned about increased traffic, especially the neighbors with children. We were concerned that if there are increased parking lots, as someone else has mentioned about her neighborhood, of the flooding potential. We were concerned about safety because we're used to neighbors and we don't know, you know, it's just an unknown. We were concerned about retaining the character of the neighborhood, which I believe is one of Stillwater's objectives of established neighborhoods, to retain their character. So for these reasons, I was concerned.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to the item, please step forward. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for staff's alternatives.
First of all, I'd like to apologize to anybody that didn't get answers to their questions. if they called in or whatever. And I'd like to invite them to come down, and I'll sit down with them, we'll pull it up on the map, and we will discuss everything to do with development and everything. So I want to extend that invitation first. All right. The alternatives are to accept the findings and recommend that the City Council approve the request as presented, find that the request is not an appropriate use for the property, and do not recommend that the City Council approve the request, or find that additional information or discussion is needed, and table the request to a certain date. Any questions for me?
Questions for staff? No.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll open up for discussion on the board.
I'll start. This is one that I'm really torn on. I know that we've got 12th Street through there. We've got it, it's been improved. It's able to carry a lot of traffic, which truly lends itself to commercial development. That's just part of a big street, and having more people driving by, if nothing else. O is the I guess most restrictive commercial zoning that we have. You can't put a convenience store or something like that in O. So I get that it's a decent transitional zoning from commercial to residential. But I do agree that that is a strong neighborhood. And, north side of 12th through there, I've been on the commission 12 years, so I've seen several of these come along, and the neighborhood's always done a good job of coming out and talking with the planning commission anyway about their concerns, and duly noted. I get that, and in the past, you guys have all done a great job of protecting your neighborhood. There hasn't been a lot of creep into that. So again, I'm a little bit torn there, just because I know we're on a commercial road. It probably makes a lot of planning sense to have those as residential, but again, it's kind of the gateway into one of the gateways into your neighborhood as well. So I'm torn on it.
I'm torn on it too. Now, when I think about it and think in other areas that I've worked in across the state of Oklahoma, office in terms of this entrance into a neighborhood along an arterial street seems appropriate. I also strongly believe in public input and neighborhood input, and to me, what I've heard tonight is, I've been told that it'll be rental house, but the neighborhood doesn't have a problem with that. So I'm going to vote against this proposal and vote for it to remain as it is, realizing it'll be rental property, and we may or may not hear this in the next year or two.
I think I'd like to take the input of the owners into account. I can tell that they care about the neighborhood and have thought about the possible alternatives. Sorry. I just, I wanted to say I think the owners' input I valued, because I can tell that they care about the neighborhood and have considered the possible alternatives and are trying to do what is best for them, because it is their property and they're allowed to have their own best interests at heart, but also what's best for the neighborhood. But I agree with both of you. It's a difficult decision.
Okay. I can concur with all of y'all. I mean, I think in the previous home, at the other location, they had listed that house, had been trying to sell it, and were getting nowhere with it, to where they were not able to have the value of their home. In this case, we haven't had that as of yet. I think it would be more persuasive to me if they'd said, we've listed it now for 6 months, we could do nothing with this, we're losing an asset of our home, and we're interested in doing something. At this point, we really haven't had that, except that, we kind of like to preempt this should we want to go that way or not. So I think that's what leans me away from accepting the change, at least at this point, knowing that it can be reproposed, at some future point. This is not forever, whatever we decide today. This can happen. It's a recommendation, and so in that regard, that's what I think about it now.
The city council will make their own decision. Also, it could remain residential even if it were rezoned office, right? So they could list it, it could be bought by somebody who wanted to use it as a house and remain residential.
Yes. It would be just a non-conforming use at that point, as long as there's property upon it.
I'm going to make a motion, we'll see if it's seconded, and see if we're going to vote on it. Find the map amendment is not an appropriate use for the property based upon the impacts to the surrounding vicinity, and do not recommend that the city council approve the map amendment. That's my motion.
I'm going to second that.
The motion has been moved and seconded to not accept staff recommendations. And we will now vote. The vote is 3-1 in favor of declining the staff recommendations. Yes. So is that's a quorum. Is that enough? Okay, so the motion denied passes. I want to get that right. I'm sorry. All right?
Kind of a double negative.
It is, but I think that's the way I'm supposed to say it. The next item for business is approval of the meeting summary for discussion and possible action of the regular meeting summary of August 15th, 2017.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minute summary. We'll now vote. The motion passes 4-0. Miscellaneous from staff for discussion. Our next Planning Commission meeting will be September 19th, 2017. We have a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second. You beat me to it there.
We'll now vote. The motion to adjourn passes 4-0. Thank you all very much.